Highly sensitive people also have a lot more, or have a deep ability to be empathetic towards others. And they've looked at the brain, and HSPs have more active mirror neurons, which are what is responsible for empathy and our ability to like understand others and like see ourselves in others. So that's just a natural part of being sensitive. So those are some of the like key things you can kind of, find and notice in yourself. A lot of people think, you hear highly sensitive and you think like, oh, they're just like crying all the time and like super emotional. And like, yes, a lot of us will be more emotional, but that's not it. That's not just it. It's like really the ability to like notice and sense things that others don't necessarily sense.
Hello my darlings and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Despina, or you can just call me Desi, and this channel is all about a lifestyle content and how to improve your life by improving your lifestyle. In today's episode, I'm very excited for this one because I have spoken to Alissa Boyer, who is a HSP expert. And if you don't know what a HSP is, it's a highly sensitive person, and 20% of the world's population is considered to be a highly sensitive. Now, that doesn't mean that you sit all day crying in a room. It just means that you process your emotions like a bit more sensitively than the average person would. And you also probably get overwhelmed more easily than others. So if you haven't read this book, it's The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron, and it is how to thrive when the world overwhelms you. Now, I feel as though we have all become a bit of a HSP with the whole coronavirus epidemic and the vaccines and all of the stresses of the last 2 years. So this interview was so educational for me because I do fall into the category of a HSP, and like over the years trying to understand myself, who I am as an individual, has really helped me thrive. So without further ado, we'll get into the video. Please give it a big thumbs up, press the bell button and the subscribe button, and let's go for it. Get a pen and a paper because you'll probably learn a lot during this interview. So I love you all. Yeah, it's hard. All right, so I have been doing my research.
Yes.
I've got this book, and I've got The Highly Sensitive Person in Love.
Amazing.
But you know what? I know that I classify as an HSP. But I didn't know that that was like a normal trait. I just thought that I was weird, right?
Yes.
But after I read this book and then I found you on Instagram, I'm kind of like, that's me. That is me completely. So I guess maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself and what you do, because for those that don't know you, I mean, obviously, like, I don't feel as though there are many people who understand what you do. So
yeah, so I am a mentor for highly sensitive people, and I definitely didn't like start out trying to like have this be my journey. It happened really organically. I learned I was a highly sensitive person maybe 6 or 7 years ago now. My mom actually introduced me to that book, Highly Sensitive Person. And she was like, I think this might describe you. And at the time, I had been going through all of these like health issues that I later learned were related to being highly sensitive. And so learning that about myself was just like such a game changer. And I had just like started a blog because I liked to write, and I was writing about just like inspirational things. At the time, it wasn't about highly sensitive people. But I noticed that anytime I did talk about being a sensitive person and being empathic, all of that, people really like resonated with it. And I got so many messages, and I slowly just kind of started only talking about that. And I realized that was like the thing. And so, yeah, I now have a membership community for highly sensitive people. It's really like I call it like self-development for highly sensitive people. It's all content related to that. It's community, everything. Because I think it's important for us to know that we're not alone, because so many of us
That's really
felt
true.
weird. And then I offer one-on-one mentorship as well. So it's kind of been really cool to be on this journey. And yeah, I meet the best people through this. So it's been awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
When you say health issues,
Oh, yeah.
I have two chronic illnesses that
Mm.
I think are from stress. So
Mhm.
can you kind of like tell us a bit about how you think HSPs are more prone to this than non-HSPs?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's really interesting. Like,
Mm.
I can't say a number, but like a lot of highly sensitive people that I talk to, because I talk to a lot now, like have had a chronic illness of some sort. It's very, very common. And so I think this is often related to just the fact that our nervous systems are much more sensitive than a non highly sensitive person. It's just like we are being way more impacted by our environment. It's just the way that we're wired. And so because of that, like a stressful event, a chaotic work environment, things like that are going to just naturally affect us more strongly.
Yeah.
And that was my story. I worked in a very chaotic work environment, and I was going through like a hard breakup. I was just like in a tough place, and I developed chronic digestive issues, like
Oh, that's
where
me.
I Oh, that's what you have too?
Oh
Oh
my
my
God.
gosh.
No way.
It's not that, but it's like very similar. Like they off what I had gets
Mm.
confused with it a lot. So I had something called SIBO. So it's called,
I've
have you
had
had
that.
that?
Oh my
You have?
God. That's insane.
Yes. See? Okay.
Oh,
So
no
many
way.
people.
Mm.
Yeah, so I had SIBO and I had leaky gut, and it was so miserable. See, it's just wild. Like so many things in common. And so that was when I was like going through that, that's when I really learned that I was highly sensitive, and I had to work with a naturopath doctor who finally helped me. And that's when I learned too, just like, managing our stress and like actually taking self-care seriously, and like prioritizing rest, like is so important for us to thrive as sensitive people. Just because of the way we're wired, we just are going to be more affected.
No, that's insane. I knew
Mhm.
that there was some connection between me being highly sensitive and I've come to the place now where I don't care about telling my viewers that I am. I'm
Right.
like, it's more important about being authentic. But I
Yes.
knew that my health issues were it's because of this and because I don't know and I still struggle. I can't deal with stress well.
Mhm.
Um so okay, so how did you heal your problems?
Yeah. So
SIBO.
definitely, yeah, SIBO. So
Mm,
I eventually found a naturopath. He's a Chinese medicine doctor. This was after I had seen, I think, three different gastroenterologists. I'd done all these things, nothing was helping. So I found this Chinese medicine doctor, and what worked for me was a combination of supplements. He just put me on a specific regimen. I also had to be on a very strict diet, just like no grains, no sugars, all of that for like 7 months.
mm,
But the biggest thing, and I would honestly say, was like 60 to 70% of the reason I healed was handling or dealing with my emotional stress and getting to the root of that. And so he was able to do, I don't know, I forget what he calls it. I want to say it's called NET, and it's a emotional like processing technique basically. So he would be able to test certain parts of my body, and this is a little out there for some people, but it really, really worked for me. He would be able to test certain parts of my body and see what emotional stress was affecting that part of my body. So
wow.
obviously my stomach was my issue. Yeah, and he would see a lot of stuff, a lot of perfectionism came up for me, and because in my job I was just always like striving to like do the most and all of that. And he was really able to relate that back to past issues I had as a kid,
Mm,
comparing myself to my younger brother. So it was very deep. There was a lot there. Um, but I learned a lot from that experience. And I think, not everyone has to like go that route if you have chronic illness. Like it's
mm,
going to be different. But I think my view on it remains the same, like being able to manage our stress and, um, you know, move through our emotions rather than try to like suppress them is so, so important for highly sensitive people.
Mm. So how do you process emotions properly? Because I feel like majority of people try to bury them.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's hard, and it's like a hard thing, and it will depend on a person's situation because there are people out there. There are a lot of highly sensitive people out there who have had like big traumatic events happen to them, and that's going to affect their ability to do that. So, like for those people like who have had a big traumatic thing happen, like I think always should be working with like a therapist of some sort. But for others who haven't had those experiences and just your day-to-day like experience, it's really about just like letting the emotion come up and not judging it and not trying to like push it away, but rather just like for me it's like noticing the sensation. So it's like, okay, if I feel sad or angry, where in my body am I feeling that? Is it in my throat? Is it in my chest? And just rather than trying to be like, oh, I can't feel that feels horrible, but just like sitting with it, because motions are energy in motion, and so they have to like move. And if we continuously like
Mm.
just like stuff them down, then we can actually cause like they stay stuck in the body and we feel physical pain and things like that. So it's
I'm
important to
assuming
move it.
that's why we get so sick.
I think so. I think it's a big part. Like, I don't think always, but I think a lot of times it plays a part. I mean, when I get a stomach ache these days, when I get a headache, like, if I haven't eaten anything crazy, I often can say, oh, what am I stressed about? What am I
Mm.
upset about? There's usually some correlation I've found.
Yeah. Geez, wow. All right. Let's start from scratch. So, can you describe to me what is a highly sensitive person, and how do you know if you have the characteristics of one?
Yeah, so a highly sensitive person, this is a term that was coined by Dr. Elaine Aron, who wrote the book that we both have read. And it's a person it's a trait. A lot of people will get confused or think it's a disorder. It's something that a doctor needs to like diagnose you with. It's a trait. It's like, I would describe it as like being an introvert or an extrovert. Some people, you just have characteristics that make you highly sensitive. It affects about 15 to 20% of the population.
It's a
And
big number of
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And a lot of people don't know about it. So that's another reason I'm like so passionate
Mm.
about sharing it. And so a highly sensitive person is going to process things on a deeper level. So we're really just like really aware of our environments. We're really picking up on a lot more things. We're filtering out less than other people are. And we don't even really necessarily notice that we're doing this. Like, maybe we'll notice that we're more perceptive and pick up on things, but we're just naturally processing on a deep level. And because of this, then we'll get overstimulated more easily. So highly sensitive people will get overstimulated by like, you're rushed, you have 5 minutes to leave and you're running late. That can be extremely overstimulating. We're also tend to be more particular about like light or smells or just like the people that we're around, because again, we're just like so open and so perceptive. So like for me, I'm very picky about my sleep. Like I can't have any noise except for a fan. I have to wear an eye mask. Like I'm super picky.
Me too.
You really, yeah. A lot of people with their clothes, like things like that, you're gonna be like that.
Well, I don't cry. Like, I'm not a crier. I've never
Yeah.
been a crier. But that's
Mhm.
very interesting. So what are some character traits of a highly sensitive person? Would you say they're introvert, extrovert, happy people, depressed people?
Mm. Yeah. So highly sensitive people mostly are introverts, but not all. I want to say it's like 30% are extroverts, 70% introverts. Because in general, HSPs need more downtime and alone time to recharge. But they could be an extrovert and get energy from people. They just need more downtime. I tend to see highly sensitive people being very conscientious, just very much like that person who cares about doing the right thing, like, being kind to others. things like that. Just like being very thoughtful. That seems to be a very much a through line that I notice in HSPs. A lot of times too, like really good in their jobs to the point where they're sometimes burdened with too many things, because HSPs often struggle with boundaries because we're very empathetic, we want to help, all of that. But because of our depth of processing and attention to detail, we tend to be good at our jobs. So you'll often find like a really good employee, they might be an HSP, not always, but a lot of times. And yeah, also, yeah, it's just another like kind of commonality. And also too, like the caretaker. A lot of HSPs are very much like
that.
the yeah, they're the person that like their friends go to, and they like to give advice and like to help people.
That's me.
So yeah.
But it can get too overwhelming and you just feel like you just can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
I saw on your Instagram you said that HSPs make the best leaders. Is it because they're empathetic, they're understanding, they can understand what others are going through, or is it because they've just got a way of surviving that's stronger than others?
I like that. Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things. I think emotional intelligence is something that usually comes natural to a lot of highly sensitive people, again, because of the empathy and the ability to kind of pick up on subtle shifts in people's like energy and emotions. And so I think, having good emotional intelligence is really important for a good leader, because they're able to know how to like, lead their team. They're able to know what people need and how to speak to other people in different tones and things like that. So I think that's one skill that they have for sure. Also, just like I find that, yeah, looking at the world in a different way. I think historically leaders have been that very much dominating, loud, aggressive type of person. And like, I think we need both types out there, but I think it's important to have somebody. I like the idea of just like more of a gentle, quiet leadership that doesn't need to be boastful. I think that can be inspiring in a different way. And then, yeah, I think also just like the resilience of just like having a different life experience and being able to kind of have empathy for other people that are, maybe going through something difficult, being able to kind of be a light for them.
So would you say a psychologist is a good job opportunity for a HSP, or is it too much for them?
That's a good question. I think, yeah, I think it definitely would be a good job, but you have to have boundaries in order to be in any type of job like that. So I think it is, I think like a psychologist or a nurse or something like that, like those kind of helping careers are great and something that HSPs are often drawn to. But yeah, being able to have boundaries and not taking on everyone's issues as your own is important. And so I don't know, like I recommend like setting boundaries to every single highly sensitive person. It's like one of the things I teach. But it's just going to depend on the person, and their capacity to kind of handle that.
So how do you set healthy boundaries?
Yeah. So I always tell people to like start small with this, because it's kind of like foreign territory to many people. They're like, have always been people pleasers and just always put other people first. So I think what it starts with is really starting small. So instead of like texting your friend back right away, or being there for everyone else at the drop of the hat, like make it a practice to like wait an hour to respond to that text, or just like feel like stop for a second before you say yes and actually like think about it. Do I have time for this? Do I have energy for this? Instead of just saying yes right away to doing that thing. And it's kind of a layered thing, because I think a lot of times people find their self-worth in always being available and helpful for others. So it can be hard to shift into like, okay, now I'm going to set a boundary and like not be available. That can be hard. So I think you need to do like, the inner work in conjunction with taking those small steps to set boundaries.
Yep. Would you say that healing yourself first is the first step? So for example, you could process traumas, right? You could go see a psychologist, obviously practicing meditation, mindfulness, all of that kind of stuff. But Like, how do you deal with traumas? Like, I feel as though a highly sensitive person has more trouble dealing with traumas than a person that is not. So, what's the best way to deal with those traumas properly?
Mm. Yeah, so it is true. Like highly sensitive people will be more impacted by traumatic events and trauma than less highly sensitive people, again, because of the sensitive nervous system. But the positive part is that we'll also be more positively impacted by therapy. We're
Mhm.
just going to be more receptive, which is like, I think is kind of awesome. So I think again, like with the big traumas, like definitely seeking therapy. And another thing that I haven't done, but I hear really great things about is just like somatic therapy. So like really working with the body because things get stuck, and that's a great way to work through it. So there's amazing practitioners out there that do that type of work. But definitely seeking support that feels good to you is so important. I don't think we can get through life without, in a healthy way, without having support. And just, yeah, and for highly sensitive people, like,
That's true.
yeah, we take on a lot.
We definitely do. All right. How can a highly sensitive person learn to calm down and just relax?
So I'm big on this idea. I always tell my clients it's like putting your armor on for the day. And so having a morning practice that is like really setting you up for success for your day. So I think that's the most important place to start. And I call it's kind of like
I
putting
like that.
deposits. Yeah, like putting deposits in the bank account for yourself so that when a stressful thing happens, like you've already done the things to like kind of start your day on a calm note. So I'm a daily meditator. Like I meditate for 10 to 15 minutes. I always move my body. I love journaling. So I recommend that to every HSP. Find a morning practice that works for you. And then also just like having tools throughout the day that when, stressful things happen, as they will, you can kind of return back to like feeling calm. So that can be as simple as just like slowing down your breath, breathing into your stomach. That can be like, I like the idea of grounding yourself. So like just grounding into your body, noticing what it feels like sitting, with your feet on the ground, things like that. Just simple shifts to like come back to your body and making yourself feel safe and comfortable.
That's really good. Okay. I feel as though HSPs don't trust themselves. Like,
Mm.
even like for me, I reckon that's my biggest issue. But as HSPs, we are highly intuitive, right?
Mhm, intuitive, yeah.
And that was one of the chapters in the book. So how do we learn to trust ourselves more?
Yeah, I think the reason HSPs often don't trust themselves is because most of us grew up hearing like you're so sensitive, you're so emotional, stop being so dramatic. And so from a young age we kind of learn to like not trust the way we feel because a lot of the people in our lives were like, whoa, I can't deal with this is too much. And so it kind of becomes ingrained in us that like the way I feel is wrong, the this is the way I am is just like not a good way to be, and that causes a lack of self-trust. And so I think I'm again big on the like small actions to make a change in how you feel about yourself. So self-trust, like you have to show yourself you're a trustworthy person. So that means like following through on your word. So if you say you're going to work out 5 days a week, like actually do it. If you say you're going to not text people back after 5 minutes, like actually do it and prove to yourself that you can trust yourself. I think that's a really good place to start. And then also like as it comes, in terms of like intuition, I think it's kind of a fun practice to write down notes of times you have like a little intuitive ping, like a little idea, something comes to you, write it down and just see if it comes true. And just like be playful about it, or write down every time you see the repeating numbers on the clock. And over time, you'll find like, oh, there was something to that. Oh, and you kind of start to build that self trust. So those are my biggest tips, I'd say.
That's really cool. All right, I'm gonna try those.
Yeah.
I just wanted to quickly mention that this is part one of my interview with Alissa Boyer. Part 2 will be out next week, so stay tuned and I hope you enjoyed this episode.